What's up, guys? So we're back with another command tutorial pretty early because one, I was able to squeeze it in, but also because I wanted to get out the scoreboard command because I've used that in my last two videos, but I've never explained it. So I wanted to get this out really quick. And basically, I'm just gonna go over everything there is, the basics of scoreboards, not everything. And then this is actually the start of a series. So in the next 2 or 3 videos, I'm not really sure how many yet, I'm basically gonna explain um thing basically kill counters and death counters, and then also player counters and all sorts of other stuff. But first I have to teach you the basics of scoreboard, or otherwise I won't be you won't really understand the rest of it. So I'm just gonna jump straight into it over here. So first section is we managing objectives, which objective are basically scores on like the main world, like the scoreboard is what it's called according to Minecraft, according to like the syntax or whatever. So basically, objectives are something that is like basically a like a value. Like say you had an objective money, you could assign different scores to each player. So actually, that is what it is. So um in this here, so this slash scoreboard objectives, the first subcommand. Then we add a new objective, which is money, and then you have to take dummy at the end, and then also there's another optional display name. So basically, you can type this is the display name. So whenever we display it on like a sidebar or something, it'll show up with a capital M or anything like that. And you can even use the section symbol to change the color and all sorts of stuff. So and then the reason we have to do dummy is because scoreboards can also be it's kind of weird. Basically, they also kind of count as players in a way. So I'll have to explain that in another video. But for now, just know that they're almost like fake players. So don't worry about that too much. But you have to take dummy at the end of this, and then there's an optional display name. So keep that in mind. So whenever we do that, oh, it looks like we are, there's already an objective with the name money. But if we go ahead and over here, there's a remove one. Same thing, but instead of add, we do remove then money. So if we go ahead and remove this, it'll say that. And then whenever we do that, it'll add it. All right, so now we can list this basically lists the current objectives. So very simple, scoreboard objectives list. That's all there is to it. So up here, it'll kind of show that output. So there's money. There's one scoreboard one objective, which is money, and that's it. So pretty simple. Then also on this one, this is how you set a display. So same thing as before, but instead of add, remove, or list or whatever, we do set display. And then there's 3 different options. So there's sidebar, there's below the name, and there's also a list. Like over here, instead of this being here, there'd be like a list. Basically to show your score as well here. So if I go ahead and actually, so I'll go ahead and add that. So that adds a sidebar with money. But if I go ahead and run that command here, so if I also add the list and then do money, then if you come over here, instead of like players in whatever and I think what's the demo world, I think is what I named it. It says money, and then I don't have a value of the score yet, so we'll get to that later. But basically, it'll list that, and also on the sidebar, if a player doesn't have a score, then it won't show up on the sidebar. So another thing you can do is just clear display by doing the exact same thing, but just don't specify the objective, and it'll clear it automatically. So I can do the same thing with the list, but we'll go ahead and add it back in because that'll be useful in a second. So that's basically all I need to know about the scoreboard objectives. It's pretty simple. Now this next one, this just talks about managing a player's score, which actually there's a lot of ways you can, but this is how you can like manually set a player's score. So it's pretty simple. Scoreboard players instead of objectives. That's our second subcommand, our second main subcommand. And then we use the set subcommand, nearest player, and then we type in the objective, money in this case, and then we say the value that we want it to be, so 1. So whenever I do that, it actually adds me to the sidebar, and over here, if you look at this, it'll say 1 on the list. So basically all that did is it just set my money score to 1. So pretty simple. Now there's more things you can do. So you can add to a player's score. So exact same thing as before, but instead of use set, use add. Which if we press this, it adds to it. But then if we go and set this back to 1, then it'll start over, and you can use this, and then it's pretty simple, but you can use this to create some cooler effects. So then here's the opposite of addition, subtraction, which instead of add, you do remove. Very simple. It's not like remove where you remove the score. It just remove a value from it. So if you did objectives, then you would if you did scoreboard objectives, then remove would remove the objective, but in this case it just removes the value. So that removes 1 from my score. So if I do that, it'll put it back to 0. And if I can add it, and pretty simple. Now this next one is even more simple. It just resets a player's score, and by that, basically, it just gets rid of the score on a scoreboard. So you just do score players, reset, nearest player money. You don't have to specify anything after that. So now I'm off the scoreboard, and over here I'm also off that. But then if I go and set it back to 1, yeah, show back up. So pretty simple still. And then this next one, that showed that, well, there's actually 2 things you do with lists. So if you only just do score players list, it tells you, it puts a list of the score, like the scores, the players that have scores. It doesn't say necessarily what score. It just says there's 1 tracked player, which is mine. But if I go ahead and reset my score, and then look at this, nothing will show up. But in the command block output, it'll say there are no tracked players on the scoreboard. But if I go ahead and set mine back to 1, then it'll say there's 1 tracked player, and it'll list what player that is. So next one, it's similar, but so actually this one is a little bit weird. So score players list, I did at E because you can actually give other entities scores. It will just here, I'll just show you what happens. So I'm using a cow because I don't have a player on this world to help me, but basically what this would do is you would specify at E, so that way it says it basically will say 1 track objective for me. It'll say what it is, and it'll say all that. So if I go ahead and go to this cow over here, which I actually don't have to go over that. So if I go ahead and do slash scoreboard players, I'll set at the type equals cow. And then I make it money score, and I'll set it to say 5 or something. So, and the reason it doesn't actually have an actual name, it just says like a random number. I don't know why it does that. And actually, even if you use a name tag on the cow, it still doesn't change it, which is actually kind of annoying because I feel like that'd be a cool effect if you could do that, but you can't. So I'll show that up. And then now whenever we do this, it says at each, it'll say 1 track objective for me, which is money, and then it'll say the score and everything, then 1 for the cow, which is just that random number, and it'll say 5 for their score. So we're going to keep that guy around because we're going to use him in a second later. So this next one, you can just use this to set a random score. So basically, same thing as before, use the random subcommand, and then nearest player, money, then 5 and 25. So that would basically set my score to somewhere between 5 and 25. So now I have 18, run it again, 23. You got 23 again, then 15, and then 12, 22. You get the point. So it sets it somewhere in. So this next one, test the score of a player. So instead of using, this is a new subcommand, the test subcommand, and then we do nearest player, money, 1 and 10. So if it's somewhere between 1 and 10, which right now it isn't, so nothing's going to show up on the console. But if I go in here, it'll say 22 is not in range 1 to 10. But then if we go ahead and try to see if we can get a score that is less than 10, or between 1 and 10, if I can get it. Okay, here. Now it'll say score 5 is range 1 to 10. So that's just how you can test someone's score. And actually, if you want it, if you don't really care what the boundary is, you can just do little asterisks for both, which means all, and then it'll say score 5 is obviously in range the integer limit to the negative integer limit to the positive integer limit, which I think in Bedrock Edition, there's not actually an integer limit. I think it's just a sync with Java, but whatever. So, but yes, that's how you can test. That's how you can just test it if you don't care what the range is. But for now, I'm just gonna keep it from 1 to 10. And then this last one is actually kind of complicated. And actually, our cow friend over there, we're gonna need him again. So this one is actually really weird. So basically, same thing as before at the beginning, but then operation. And then here's the thing about the operation. So you would think, oh, you can just multiply it by a number and stuff. Well, that's not really true, which is actually really stupid. But basically, you do nearest player, the money score, times, and then you have to do the equals after that for some reason. And basically, you can do is you can perform an operation between two different players' scores. Or say I added another score, you could do it between the same player but with a different score. So basically, my money score right now, which is 5, multiplied by add type equals cow. So that'd be that cow over there. And then their money score. So we multiply the two together. And basically, the person over here, this is the target. This is a target objective. Then we multiply it by the cow and then their money score. And basically, the target is the one who gets the updated score. So whenever I run this, it'll give me the score of 25. It's really weird, and honestly, there's not a lot of cases where you can use this, but actually there is one. So, say you want to make a multiplier for whatever reason, you could have a score of you could have like a money score, and then you could have a multiplier score of the same player, and you could use that to multiply their money score like as an added bonus or whatever if you're trying to I don't know, say you're doing like a kill streak counter and you want to multiply their points that they get times their kill streak. Um, that you could do that. So you could do like 10 times their kill streak equals the points they get. You could do something like that with this. And actually, another thing, you can also use like plus and stuff like here. Let me show you the full syntax. So, uh, operation s money. There's all these different ones. This first one is modulo, which it's weird. Honestly, I'm not gonna explain all these, but look, basically times equals. You can also do plus and minus. So if you want to add and subtract different scores, you can do that. Then there's divide. There's dividing, and there's also basically these greater than equal to. It basically sets it to the score that's higher out of the two. So I don't know. There's not a lot of places we'd use that. Then the equals, I'm not really sure what these two do. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but there's a lot of useless ones I feel like you'll never use, but basically that's how you would use it if you wanted to. So anyway, that's the video. It was a little bit shorter this time, but I'm just showing you the basics of the scoreboard. There's going to be more videos about the score, just different ways you can use scores and all sorts of stuff. So anyway, thanks for watching. If you made it this far, please consider subscribing. We don't just make command tutorials on this channel. Like I make command tutorials primarily, but my friends on the channel they make bridge duels, bed wars, all sorts of other content. So if you want to see that, then that'd be great. Honestly, we have a wide variety of content. So we play Hypixel. We're gonna do a survival series at some point, and obviously I make command tutorials because I just like them. So anyway, yeah. So consider subscribing if you want to see those things, and yeah, I mean, also another thing, this is for Bedrock Edition only, so it's the syntax in Java is a little bit different. So anyway, sorry, I yapped a lot, but basically, please consider subscribing, like the video if you think it's useful, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.